Good day, afternoon. How y'all doing? This is our live stream for today. Uh, I don't know how long it'll be. It's just me today, so we'll see what happens. Oh, if you want to come on, click click the link over there in the comments. This way. I don't know what you're facing, but wherever the comments are at the top, there's a link. In the meantime, not much going on in the world. I saw where Michigan ruled to keep Trump on the ballot, and it was a different type of case. It was a different legal issue behind that one. So it's not exactly equivalent to the Colorado case, but still, to me, it makes it more likely that the Supremes will have to rule soon. Because if this keeps happening in other states and they all have different justifications for keeping him on or off the ballot, it seems like we need some kind of higher authority to give us a standard to use. That's really the only thing that I saw happening recently. Let me check Twitter real quick. And then I gave the Google, the Bard, it gave me some more philosophy topics to go over. So I'll use those as prompts. Man, not much has been happening. Oh, there is a video I wanted to show. Oh, no, I don't want to show those. I do want to show this one, and I want to share this one tweet. So let me get started with that. Oh, hey, Chris. We miss you. He's at his appointment. So, hi, I hope it goes well. What time is the appointment? And I hope they're able to give you some good news. All right, here's the tweet. Behind every colonized narrative is the expectation that the colonizer, like the U.S., Israel, etc., should be more moral than the colonized, as though the colonized were some endangered animal without the agency and moral culpability of the colonizer. Yeah, it's that victim oppressor narrative. That's because these narratives are designed to be used as weapons against the population, specifically to foment ethnic strife. Okay. All right, take a look at this video, y'all, and then we'll talk about it. Hang on. Gotta tweak my settings.
I am trigender, which means like a triangle, I have 3 genders: male, female, and non-binary. And the difference between trigender and gender fluid is that I feel all 3 of these genders at the same time. All the time. It doesn't ever shift or change, or where I feel one gender more strongly than the other, like gender fluid tends to be. Also, I should recognize and accept that a lot of people don't see non-binary as a third gender. They see it as something completely separate from the binary of male and female. But for me, it's like a third gender. Or I guess you could call it a third identity.
I don't have any hair to pull out. Hey, somewhere. Oh, you're putting emoticons. That's what you're doing. They don't show on StreamYard. They don't show up as emoticons. They show up as text. Face, blue, wide eyes. I just realized it's supposed to be emoticons. So that's I don't care about her gender. And non-binary is either we're all non-binary, which makes it not a thing, or it is completely different made-up gender from male and female, which also makes it not a thing. So either way, I don't care about non-binary. When people tell me they're non-binary, I just like roll my eyes, like, okay, whatever you think you are. It has no meaning to me. You look like a girl, a woman to me. Nobody can see the inside of your head, so we really don't care. Enjoy whatever identity you think you are. Middle. Okay, let me see. I think that's all I had. Let me check YouTube real quick. Oh, Benjamin. Why does Benjamin stream at the same time that I do? Doesn't he know that I have this important stream going every day and not to try to compete with me? It's on opioid, from opioids to gender. Oh, fair in medicine. I don't think I'm going to peek in on that one today. Right. Yeah. A blue face emoji. But on StreamYard, it shows up as words. StreamYard can't display emojis yet. So it looks like you're typing something. Okay, let me tell you what the Google gave me today to talk about. Mind and perception. That's one category. How do our senses shape our understanding of the world? Our senses are the basis for knowledge and understanding. And we talked a while back about knowledge versus understanding. Knowledge was perception, like senses, and like the data that's fed to us from the outside, and judgment about that data. And understanding added the dimensions of intuition and experience to the perception and judgment. So you have like a fourfold model for knowledge plus understanding is perception, judgment, intuition, and experience. So our senses are like one of the inputs into that model. How does it shape our understanding? Our senses provide us the starting point to build knowledge on, or to our narrative, if you want to call it that, because our brain packages knowledge into narrative anyway. And understanding. So I think that's part of the beginning process of understanding. And then as we think through, play through, listen through, work through that narrative, understanding gradually begins to emerge or coalesce, and of course always changing with new input as the narrative changes. So that would be my answer for that one. And is there anything we can truly know beyond our own internal experience? I don't want to rule out no, but I think ultimately anything we do know becomes part of our internal experience. Like knowledge happens within that internal experience. So regardless of what it is you're knowing, I don't think you can ever escape having it be an internal experience. This one always confused me growing up. I still don't know what to make of it. If a tree falls in the forest and no one is there to hear it, does it make a sound? To me, it would. But all my teachers and the science people have all assured me that sound does not happen unless there's a receiver. But it would cause sound waves, and they would ripple out and bounce off of physical objects. So to me, there would still be a sound, like the sound, and that's kind of like color. Does color exist in the brain, or does it exist in the physical world? I think it exists in the mind, because different animals would see different colors, and colorblind people would see different colors than other humans. So color is subjective, but there's some phenomena out there that the light waves are bouncing off of and absorbing to be experienced as color once our brains come into contact with it. And it seems like the same with sound. If the tree falls, that would make some kind of wave out independent of our perception that our perception would interact with to create sound. So it depends, I guess it depends on the definition of sound. To me, the sound waves would be sufficient to be sound, but some people would say you need the perception of the waves to like fully and completely be sound. So I don't know. I'm still perplexed over this one. Can an object exist if no one is aware of it? Yes, there's plenty of objects that exist right now that I'm not aware of, and I'm sure that they still exist. There's things in the deep sea, outer space, like Antarctica, wherever, that nobody, like, how do we discover things if we have to be aware of it before they exist? We couldn't discover anything new. So yes, I think objects exist without awareness. And not to mention that human awareness came after most of the objects that exist. The universe, the galaxies, the sun, the planets, Earth, rocks, plants, animals, and then we came along to be aware of it all. So it existed before we came along. Unless you're a solipsist like me, then the whole universe started when I first became conscious, and it's going to end when I stop being conscious. And that's all of the universe I will ever know. Are dreams a window into another reality or simply a product of our brains? Our brains are a window into another reality. Or what is it? I'm getting hung up on another reality. I mean, dreams kind of are a reality unto themselves, but I don't think it's a reality, again, outside of our brain. It's just another phenomenon of our brain. We experience our brain in waking life as it puts together the sensory experience into whatever we think the world is, and it's different for each person. And then our dreams are a different thing that our brain does, like a different reality that our brain forms while we're asleep. But it's all our brain. All right, so that takes care of mind and perception. Let's see, somewhere says, because all work is a living frequency, the rhythm of life, and so on forever. The rhythm of life is a curious thing. And does life have a rhythm outside of well, it has seasons. It has like animals, plants, the harvest cycle, growth, death, animal migratory patterns, life cycles, the universal, the planetary cycles, and solar cycle, lunar cycle, etc. So yeah, I guess there is rhythm without humans, but it took humans to experience it as rhythm and call it rhythm and notice that it was a thing. What is the relationship between words and the things they represent? There's the philosophy of language called essentialism, which I believe is more or less Aristotelian. And then Wittgenstein came along and came up with language games and categories. And that to me is more authentic to how words actually work. They're representations of things. Things exist independently of the words that we use to describe them, and the words are contextual, and they can change depending on the speaker or the context or the time period. So you have thing, you have word, and you have the individual using the word, and you have to constantly adjust for all three of those things. And then you have, if the individual is using the word in a context, a social context with another listener or group of listeners, and that's a fourth point you have to adjust for. Can language ever truly capture the complexity of our experiences? People like me who appreciate people like Shakespeare would say, yes, Shakespeare's captured a complexity we didn't even know was there until he captured it. So it went above and beyond, or like transcended the ability to describe the complexity of our experience. But then, no, I mean, I've had experiences that transcend or exceed the ability of language to capture them. So I guess it depends on the scale of the person trying to capture it in language. Somebody like Shakespeare probably could capture the complexity. Somebody like me cannot. I struggle just to communicate basic concepts. My articulation is horrible. I've never been a great. I've always struggled with writing and express. I can think really fast, and I know what I know what I want to say, and I see it in my mind. It's getting it out in words that has always been a struggle for me. So again, depends on the individual. I don't want to rule out that there are experiences that our language has not caught up to. I also don't want to rule out the experience of geniuses like our great artists, writers, and thinkers to through experiences. So I think that's where I'm going to leave that answer. Ooh, I'm getting the low bar signal. Like I hope I'm not freezing up and that you're getting all of this philosophical wisdom. Let's see. Can machines truly understand language, or they simply mimic it? I was having this conversation today about AI. I don't think AI is ever going to. It can process. It's still processing data. It can process and synthesize. I don't think it can create. I don't think it can understand. I don't think it can make meaning. I don't think we're going to have AI Shakespeare. So no, I don't think it understands language. I think it processes language. And someone told me about the Chinese room thought experiment, where there's a guy in a room and he gets Chinese characters and he uses this manual and he translates them into English characters and he sends out the meaning, but he doesn't understand the characters themselves. He's just going off what his book is telling him to do. So I think it's kind of like that. The machine is not going to. Understanding is something humans do, especially if you use the model that I proposed, which adds intuition and understanding to perception and judgment. I don't think a machine, I guess it can judge in a sense. It can evaluate what outputs are relevant or not, or important to give you. But I don't think it has intuition. I don't know. It has experience in a sense that it learns from its experience. So it improves the more you use it with whatever, like you as an individual, whatever topic you're using it on. You can even get it to regenerate its answers and improve them. So, but I think it's the judgment and intuition, or even the perception. I mean, is a machine perceiving or is it just receiving input? I don't know. And then we got quantum computing possibly over the horizon. Once AI and quantum computing meet, I think that's a threshold that we just can't see beyond right now, like even in our imaginations, or I certainly can't. But I'm still not a doomer about technology. I still think it's a tool that is going to be used for all kind of amazing things to improve our lives, and maybe there'll be some destructive uses of it too that we'll deal with when they happen. Can silence be meaningful? I think anything can be meaningful because I think humans make meaning, and I'm sure there's a human out there somewhere that can make meaning from silence. Me personally, I can't stand it. And even worse than silence is stillness. I cannot stand stillness. And if you combine stillness and silence, you might as well just put me in a mental institution now. That is torture to me. I probably should say that on stream because now people know how to torture me if they want to. But yeah, if you put me in stillness and silence and I don't have any way, like I can't move around, or I have to have noise. I grew up around a lot of noise. Like up here, that's one of my complaints is they like everything's so quiet here. Like the coffee shops, the restaurant, they're like libraries. There's like nobody talks. If you talk, people glare at you. So yeah, silence apparently can be meaningful because everybody up here finds meaning in it, but I do not. I don't get anything out of silence at all. It just makes me like anxious for something to happen. Social and political philosophy. What is the role of justice in society? Plato's Republic. That was a thought experiment in determining what justice is. People think it was like his attempt to create the perfect society or utopia, but it was really just a thought experiment to examine the role of justice in society. I think justice like art and love and like the deeper, higher, complex emotions, it satisfies something within us above and beyond just the practical utility of keeping society orderly and organized. There's something in us that feels aggrieved and I don't know, betrayed somehow by when we're faced with injustice. Like I feel that about the Donald Trump thing, that he didn't get his due process. And I am not a Trump fan. I don't even want him on the ballot. But I absolutely feel this sense of injustice that the courts, and not so much the court itself, but the people that are defending it, like on Twitter and social media. It seems like it's a combination of Trump derangement syndrome, and they hate him so much and see him as so evil and such a threat that they're willing to rationalize bending and breaking the normal rules of due process. And it's the justifications and the rationalizations and in the way they gaslight everybody else that I think bothers me the most and gives me this feeling of injustice. Like there's something not right, not fair, it's corrupt. It's you pretend to be morally righteous and superior to everybody else, and you're doing one of the most corrupt activities I've ever seen in my lifetime. And so you kind of lose faith in the higher parts of humanity and the ability to base a society on the best of us instead of the worst of us. And I think that runs very deep in humans, especially like advanced humans that's living in a civilized level where we have all this accomplishment and achievement that's at risk if we regress to something more barbaric. So I think the role of justice has a practical role in keeping society running, but it also serves I hesitate at the verge of spiritual, but it has a deep psychological and emotional role to the individual. Does everyone have the right to freedom of speech, even if it's offensive to others? Yes. Yes. You don't have the right not to be offended. Where is that a right? You can handle it. None's going to happen to you. The satanic tenet. I'm going to pull it up because I want to. That's one of the things that drew me to Satanism was this one tenet. When I saw it, I'm like, yes. The freedom of others should be respected, including the freedom to offend. To willfully and justly encroach upon the freedom of another is to forego one's own. That's the slide into authoritarianism. When you start babysitting the feelings of others and micromanaging speech and expression, you've stepped out of liberalism into authoritarianism. And that was tenet 4 of the Satanic Temple tenets. So yeah, I don't care what I can handle anything people say to me. You can say whatever you want, and I can deal with the consequences from there. You can insult me. I can manage my own feelings. If you lie to me and I find out, there'll be consequences then. So you can speak whatever you want, but just be prepared for the consequences of it. And you can't offend. I'm very hard to offend because I'm in control of what offends me. Like I can determine the power that words have over me. I don't let other people or the words themselves determine that. What is the best form of government and why? So far, the federal constitutional republic that the United States is, which I guess is a form of democracy. Is technology making us more connected or isolated? It's both. It's a tool. It's making it whatever you use it for. If you're using it to isolate, then it's making you more isolated. If you're using it to connect, then it's making you more connected. Technology itself doesn't do anything to you. You use it to do something to yourself. Our obligations to future generations, I kind of touched on this yesterday. That was one of the questions. I don't know what their needs are, so I don't feel a particular obligation to meet them. But then I'm not a parent either, or have any kind of investment in children. Metaphysics and philosophy of time. What is the nature of time? Does it flow linearly, or is it more cyclical? Time is a flat circle. It's experienced linearly by humans, but there's various historical concepts of it, like cyclical. It's the Hebrews that gave us the concept of linear time, that history has a beginning and an end and moves in a straight line. Before that, time was conceived as cyclical. There's also time as eternal, where everything that happens, we experience it as time, but it's all happening. It's one event that's just happening eternally. And then, of course, science or physics has the conception of time as one of the dimensions. It used to be the fourth dimension when I was growing up, or I knew it as the fourth dimension, and people tell me it no longer is. You know what? Let me look it up. Or let me just ask ChatGPT. I was talking today about dimensions and with someone, and they said it's like you have like the x-axis and the y-axis, and they're perpendicular to each other. And then if you want a third dimension, you have the z-axis, which is perpendicular to the x and y. And the fourth dimension would be perpendicular to the x, y, and z axis. And the difficulty is our being able to conceive of something being perpendicular to all three. I can't do it with my brain. I can't picture something that's perpendicular to all three axes, but that's what the fourth dimension would be. Whether time is the fourth dimension is a fascinating question that has captivated philosophers and scientists for centuries. There are compelling arguments on both sides. So basically, they don't know. Einstein's theory of relativity, special and general, time is not considered separate from space. So it's the four-dimensional fabric of space-time. This means that our experience of moving through space is always intertwined with our movement through time. So in that case, I think time would be the fourth dimension. Visualizing space-time, it says, imagine a simple map with length and width. This represents the two dimensions of space we're familiar with. Now add a third dimension, height, to create 3D dimension. And similar, adding time as a fourth would create a 4D representing space-time. As the box moves through time, you could measure at any point along, you can measure its height, length, width, height, and where it is in time. It says we experience time as a one-way flow, always moving forward. The unidirectional nature is similar to how we can only move forward in the spatial dimension, up, down, left, or right. And the arrow of time. And then there's the theory in quantum theory, like that the waveform collapses into this one universe that we're experiencing now, and that the time flows forward because the waveform has already been collapsed, and we're just like playing out the waveform. And so we get that linear forward motion to time. I don't know if gravity is a dimension like that you measure, like length, width, height, depth, time. I thought gravity was a force. Wait, what happened? The appointment? So wait, you went all the way. They could not have told you that over the phone or on a Zoom call? You drove all the way to Dallas to go to this appointment to have them say, let's just wait for what the upcoming appointment says, and then you have to go back to Texarkana now? Yeah, I like Somewhere's advice. And yourself. Lunch and fresh air. Well, Chris, that would piss me off too. In fact, I would go fuss at him. Don't jeopardize your health care, though. I'm just, I get in trouble behind that a lot. Okay, arguments against time is the fourth dimension. Different properties. While space and time are both part of space-time, they have distinct properties. We can move freely in space, but not in time. Additionally, the distances between points in space can be measured, while the distance between moments in time cannot. Well, what are days, months, years, decades, centuries? Are they just as arbitrary? Like, what? Oh, I see. Like, we can physically measure space, but we can only conceptually measure time because we can't go back into the past and actually mark that point and then measure the quantity of it to this point that we're in now. Mathematical abstraction. Space-time is a mathematical construct used to describe the universe. It's not clear whether it represents a physical reality or simply a convenient way to model our observations. That's most of physics, is coming up with explanatory predictive models, and then we're always revising them when we encounter anomalies or new phenomena that don't comport with the model. And Thomas Kuhn, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, has the theory of the paradigm shift. Like, so we form these paradigms, and then eventually, when enough anomalous data comes in, the paradigms begin to break down, and at some point, a new paradigm has to be created or emerges from the new data and phenomena that we're faced with. So space-time, I guess, is a current paradigm, but it may not be the ultimate paradigm. I don't know if any of them are. Our brains are wired to perceive space in 3 dimensions and time as a separate entity. This perception might be a limitation of our senses rather than a reflection of the true nature of reality. Yeah, I've kind of thought that's what intuition was. It's this perception across, outside of time, linear time, that we're somehow perceiving the whole or totality of something with time removed or abstracted from it, and it comes to us as intuition. Like we see patterns, or we recognize patterns outside of time that our intuition's reacting to, that our sense perception would not necessarily perceive as part of a pattern because it doesn't have the full perspective of time, of being outside of time, like looking down on or into time. Ultimately, the question remains an open debate, complex concept with profound implications for our understanding of the universe. And it gives some books to read. If time travel were possible, would it be ethical to change the past? I don't think we would know until we try it, but I don't think that's going to stop anybody from trying to change it anyway, whether it's ethical or not. So I think it's kind of a moot point. I mean, I would probably even try to change it to see. I talked yesterday about certain points in my life where I made choices or decisions that if I had to live it over again, I would probably change. And so I think I would even make, like, I don't think I would come up to the Pacific Northwest for one. I don't know if I would have stayed in New Orleans or go somewhere else, but I definitely would. Now, having been here, I know not to come up here if I go back in time. So I would probably change that. And then I may not have met any of you. I may not be doing the live streaming. Like, I mean, I might be working, I don't know, retail at a mall somewhere, who knows, in Podunk, Louisiana. So I don't know if that's ethical or not, but I would do it anyway and just take the consequences from there. Could we ever truly be present in the moment, or are we always thinking about the past or future? Okay, here's what I learned. I personally, I find it very hard to be present. The present moment freaks me out. I get this like intense, uncomfortable feeling of when I have to be in the present. My mind is always, rarely in the future, almost always in the past. And one of the suggestions is because we die in the present moment, and it's the moment that brings us closest to death. And if we're too in the present, it's like being on that edge of death. But the other thing I was told was that our brains, like certain psychedelics, there's a chemical in our brain that it turns off or shuts down or changes or something that causes us to the future. And that's why on certain psychedelics, that present moment gets expanded and we're able to be in the present then or focus on the present. So I think the way our brains are wired with this chemical, and I'm being very clumsy about this because I don't remember the details, but there's something that psychedelics do, some mechanism is in our brain that they shut off or alter, that when it's working normally, we naturally think about the past or future. So it's like our brains are not built to even be in the present moment. And so that's another reason I probably find it hard, because that's the natural inertia is not to be in the present moment. What is Flo's up in here? Loosen his lug nuts. Well, yeah, intuition outside of space time. Because I still use the old model of relativity where it's one thing. Oh yeah, I remember that movie. What was it called? Is it called Somewhere in Time? Is that where you got your name? Does the possibility of multiple universes change our understanding of reality? How does a possibility change understanding of anything? If it's only like anything's possible, if it's only a possibility, it seems like it would need something more than that to actually affect our understanding. Especially if we use the intuition experience model. So we'd have to have the like experience of the possibility, or some kind of intuition that the possibility is probable. Like that's one of my frustrations on the stream that I've voiced over and over, is a lot of people come on here and just throw out these random what if possibilities that don't really go anywhere. And I'm more of a probability person. Like, give me a reason to think that any of these things are probable, and then the discussion can progress or go somewhere. I don't necessarily get a pleasure out of running through possibilities for the sake of possibility. And I think there's value in that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. I'm just saying it's not something that I get anything out of. But it does have a place in human creativity, I think. Like if you're creating art or a movie, for example, and I think you do have to brainstorm all these multiple possibilities. But when you're trying to make sense of reality, I don't necessarily think you do. I think you can focus on the ones that seem probable. Okay, well, that is our philosophical journey for today, thanks to Google. The future seems unreal. Yes, I'm future blind. I have no concept of the future, no ability to imagine it. Even when I try, it never turns out like I have it pictured in my mind. So I don't even bother about the future. I couldn't even tell you what I'm doing tomorrow at all, or even the rest of the day. And well, the past for me is ever present. I have a hyperthymistic memory, so like all of my memories are as vivid as yesterday, and they're all in there at the same time. So I'm constantly like cycling through all the memories of my past, and so they're very real to me. They're almost more present than the present reality. But I think that's an artifact of the peculiarity of my brain. But it's definitely brain. Like our tendency to experience past, future, whatever. It's definitely tied to brain structure and brain chemistry and the way our brain is designed. So I don't know how much we're even in control of that. Okay, another emoji. Elbow cough. Wash hands. Wash hands. Nice ride. Take care for now. Yeah, it was good to see you somewhere. You take care too. Have a good rest of your day. And I think I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to be doing a New Year's Eve stream, unless people want to get together and do one big group stream. We could keep it going and ring in midnight, and then I'm going to do another all-day New Year's stream like I did for Christmas. So that's coming up, and I'll be here tomorrow at the usual time, 2 p.m. Central, for the daily extreme stream. And if anyone wants to come on and continue talking about philosophy topics or whatever other topics interest you, feel free. Otherwise, I might end early today. And living in memory seems dead. Yeah, did you ever see Waking Life? The movie. Oh, that reminds me. I think I'm going to show that Nietzsche documentary on Discord today. All you have to do is dwelling there seems sort of like that's an interesting take. For me it doesn't, because my memories are Flo, you got to see Waking Life. In fact, I'm willing to even show it in the Discord too. It's definitely worth checking out. It's Richard Linklater. It's the one he did after. It's kind of a continuation of Slacker, and it's a animated rotoscope. He had live action, then you animate over them, and it's all about philosophy and memory and dreaming and everything you just described. But for me, it doesn't feel like being buried alive, because my memories are so. I've really been blessed with some amazing experiences and amazing memories. And I'll write it down though. Yeah, let me. I don't know. It's probably less than 90 minutes. Or let me check. It's animated. It's not a normal movie. It's like a there's this one main character, and he's kind of dreaming, and he just goes through different dream sequences, and he meets all of these different philosophers and thinkers, and they have conversations, and it's animated, so you get all these cool effects to go along with the conversations. Let me see how long it is. 101 minutes, so a little over 90 minutes. So for me, my memories are very vivid and alive, and they're almost always more interesting than what's going on around me. So it seems like to me the opposite of buried life. It seems like that's where all the life is, and the present moment seems just dead. And Wallace Stevens has that line in one of his poems: "In the presence of extraordinary actuality, reality takes the place of imagination." So unless my reality is extremely extraordinary, like if actuality becomes extraordinary, then it will take the place of my imagination or memory. But absent that, my memory and imagination tends to. I don't get lost in my imagination. I get lost in my memory. But memory is a form of imagination. Some people imagine fantastic things that don't exist in this world, and my imagination draws on experiences that I've actually had and weaves them together into memory. But I think it's still that active imagination at work, and it takes a pretty extraordinary present moment to take me out of that and have reality substitute for what my mind can do on its own. Oh, because of your ADHD? Check it out. Just try it. Because it's not a linear movie. There's no plot to follow. You could even like come watch a few scenes, stop, come back, watch a few more scenes, because they're all self-contained. And so it may work with your brain. It's definitely not a movie you have to invest in or pay attention to. You can really just take it scene by scene. Although the ending that ties it all together is kind of neat too. And I've got to warn you, it does start a little slow. It doesn't really get super interesting because it kind of builds up. It doesn't get truly super interesting until maybe 15 or 20 minutes in. I guess it depends on your memories. I've definitely had trauma memories that it's not fun living in, but those replay too. That's part of the PTSD. And I've kind of learned how to manage those and lessen the effect that they have. But they still come back too. And it's all spontaneous. Like I can actively focus on memories and call them up and make them more vivid. Sometimes I even they have these jigsaw puzzle programs, so I could take like a photo from the past and make a jigsaw puzzle out of it. And then as I sit there and make the puzzle, I can really focus my mind on that one memory. Well, yeah, I guess they're dead if your brain's not constantly calling them back up. There's some memories that are dead. There's some things I remember that I totally forgot about, and then when I remember them, it hits me like like as fresh as the first time. But I had forgotten all about them up until that point. So I'm always adding to my memories. But if they stay dead, then yeah, they're dead. And if you have things going on in your present life to create new memories with, or to compensate or fill up your brain with whatever's going on now, then it's probably not a problem. But I noticed that the memories, there's some called the reminiscence bump that happens, I think, I don't know, in your 40s, that they notice that your memories start to come back. Let's see. The tendency for older adults over 40 to have increased or enhanced recollection for events that occurred during their adolescence or childhood. So it's a phenomena they noticed in the brain that sometime in your 40s, all your childhood, you start to be able to access your older memories more. So that happened to me about the same time that the trauma started and the PTSD. So my memory I've always had a really good memory, and anything that makes an impression on my brain just stays on my brain. But when the trauma started and then that reminiscence bump thing, it kind of changed the way my memory works and what I remember. And so memory became intensified, and like the present moment lost more meaning for me than it had before. And the memory acquired greater meaning than it even had before. But I've always kind of my memories have always been important to me, because when I was a teenager, we moved from the town I grew up in that I was very well adjusted to this other town that I was not adjusted to. And I had all these difficulties like integrating. And so it was the memories of the original, like my childhood town, that sustained me through all that I kept returning to. And that's where I got all my strength from, and my ability to persist in the face of the adversity of living this new town. So my memories have always been a source of strength and empowerment for me from a very early age. And I've continued to use them that way. Well, this was a good conversation, even through the comments. It certainly gave me a lot to think about and reflect on. So, okay, well, if there's no more guests or comments or anything, I'll wrap this one up. Maybe I'll go for an hour. Let me see if there's anything on Twitter. No, I think I'll wrap up. There's no reason to sit here and waste everybody's time forcing content. So have a good rest of your day. We'll be here tomorrow. And like I said, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. So go do something good today. Go make some good memories for yourself. And then try to remember them next week and see what happens. Okay, take care, everybody. See you then. Let me get my music.